Hi everybody, it's Heather Hansen. We're trying out our live Facebook video again, and the first try ran into connection difficulties, so we're going to try one more time, and hopefully it will work, because if our connection's too bad today, I don't have enough time to redo this. I'm sure many of you are probably out and about. It's Saturday night. I'm also on my way out the door, but I just wanted to check in with you because I had such a great time yesterday, and there were some questions that came up that I didn't get to answer, and I saw them after the video, after the fact. So one of them that was really good was from Martiniano, who was asking about the methods for learning pronunciation, and he mentioned imitation and repeat. And then Jong-il was watching the video as a recording, and he was asking about shadowing. So he was asking about shadowing, and these were both really awesome questions. So I wanted to just hop on and talk about pronunciation, learning and teaching methods, and give you some ideas as to how you can quickly and easily try to practice on your own. Different methods you can use. So these ideas that Martiniano and Jong-il were talking about, the imitation and repetition and shadowing, it's all about finding a language model, listening to that person, repeating what they do, copying what they do, and trying to sound just like them. So let's say that you want to sound like the Queen of England, so you listen to how she speaks and then you copy her exactly. This is the most traditional way of teaching pronunciation, the most traditional way that people think they need to learn pronunciation. It's the way most teachers teach in the classroom. There are some pros and cons to it. You know, the good thing, of course, you want some kind of language model, but the problem I see in many language classrooms around the world is that our language model is either an American or a British accent, and that seems to be the only acceptable language models, pronunciation models. But that really doesn't reflect our world today. We have about 2 billion non-native English speakers of English who are speaking in this beautiful variety of accents, and they're all understanding each other pretty well. And you don't need to sound American or British to get by. I think it's a real shame when people completely wipe out their accents, or people come to me and say, Heather, I want to sound just like you. And I say, yeah, but why? Why would you want that? Because why don't you want to have your own voice? Why? Your accent is a part of your identity. It's a part of who you are. So I want you to keep your identity. We can always make small changes, small tweaks, so that you're better understood, so that you speak clearly. But sometimes choosing a language model and trying to 100% imitate that one person or that one specific accent, it could lead to some problems for you down the line. It can also, you know, it can also give you a false, how should I say it? It makes you think that you have to reach a certain standard that isn't necessarily needed. Right? So basically, you know, you're striving and striving and striving to have this British English accent, and chances are you're never going to get there, because it's really difficult for people to take on an accent and completely lose their accent and you know, find a new accent. It's really difficult. So I don't want you setting goals that are going to be really hard for you to achieve. There's absolutely nothing wrong with finding a language model who is a native speaker of your language. Find someone out in the news, you know, find a celebrity from your country who speaks English well, and shoot for that model, because it's much more obtainable. You can feel like you can achieve your goals. So anyway, that's just what I wanted to say with a, you know, small caveat around imitation and repeat. Jong-il also mentioned, you know, looking at newscasters and imitating them, using them as a model. And that's also an okay idea. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but you need to keep in mind that newscasters speak in a very specific way. They have very specific intonation. It's not a natural way of speaking. I would almost prefer that you watch an American sitcom like Friends, because then you're going to learn the intonation patterns that we use, the timing that we use, when we're sitting around having conversations, because a newscaster is speaking English in a very particular way, and it's only newscasters that talk like that. So just remember that when you're choosing language models, what kind of situation are they in? How are they using the language? If you're modeling Barack Obama, if you're modeling any other politician, well, when you see them speak, they're speaking in public and on political issues. So keep in mind, you know, how they're using the language and how they sound, and if that's really the way you want to sound. Now, other than imitation and repeat, there are some other models out there and ways of teaching and learning pronunciation. One which I find really interesting is called the silent method, or the silent way. And when it's applied to pronunciation, it's quite interesting. It's a method that I have recently learned about in the past year and a half or so, where I met some of the people who have put together an amazing system on the silent way for pronunciation. And it's exactly what the name says. The teacher actually doesn't say anything. They use a chart, somewhat like the phonetic alphabet, but it's actually in colors. It's all quite different, and they point to different colors. They make a shape with their mouth. They might just go, to get you to go, ah, and hopefully that's the sound they were looking for. And the whole idea behind this method, and I find it really fascinating, the whole idea behind it is to get you to experience the learning. Instead of being told what to do, put your tongue here, do this, open your jaw, place it here, do that. Instead of being told, they ask you to experience and figure it out on your own. So if they went and you said, ah, they might say, instead of ah, right? But they wouldn't say anything, to get you to think about your mouth placement and then create the new sound. Now, there are some restrictions to this kind of method. I, for one, am not sure how I could possibly teach you online using this method. I'm sure that there is a way, and somebody will come up with it at some point, but you would have to have a teacher who really knows this method and could teach it for you that way, if that was appealing to you. So I just want to open your eyes to the fact that there are other methods out there. It isn't only imitation and repeat, okay? But generally in traditional classrooms, that's what you're going to see, and that's what you're going to hear. If you look at the way that I teach personally, in online programs and in my pronunciation mastery program, for example, I definitely do use a lot of repetition. So, but I think that the most important thing for you as a learner is not just to blindly try to repeat. I think that you need to have some kind of understanding of what's going on. You need to understand why the R and L sound different. How does that feel in your mouth? You need to feel the language, especially when we get into things like fluency and flow. They're much more about feeling. It's much more an art of communication. It's not so scientific of put your tongue here and open your jaw here. You really need to be feeling the language in a different way. And that's something that's very difficult to teach, honestly. It's something that you need to experience. And that's what I think the silent way is trying to help people with. And that's why I really like it, for that reason. But in my own teaching, for example, if we look at my pronunciation mastery program, it always starts with a listening passage where you can listen to me read a passage of speech which is focused on specific sounds, like P and B, for example. So it will have words with P and B. And the whole idea is to raise your awareness listening as to what these sounds sound like. Why are they different? You shouldn't just be listening to the content. You should be listening for sound. And it's not just in a program. It's when you're out and about, when you speak English, when you use English, when you're watching television. Listen to the sounds. Raise your awareness. That's the only way you can start to make changes. If you can't hear the difference between two sounds, you won't be able to create the difference. So that's step number one. Then in my program, I'll go on to production where I actually explain to you, okay, this is how we make the P sound, this is how we make the B sound, this is the difference. Can you feel the difference? Have you practiced that? Then we look at the sound in words, we look at the sound in sentences, and it's a lot of listen and repeat, practice, 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 practice. I found that in an online environment, this is the easiest way to give you the content. And it gives you a lot of practice, because you do need to practice, you do need to imitate, you're going to have to use the sounds. And if you aren't in a place that uses English all the time, that can be difficult sometimes. but what are some ways that you can learn pronunciation on your own? Okay, I think that's also really important. What can you do right now, today, to start improving? And this is the very last thing I can talk about, and I really have to run. I'm going to be late for my dinner reservation. But I love this stuff, so I can't help it. So I'm sorry if I'm not replying or mentioning your questions here. Ask me about business. This word has a lot of meanings. I'm going to have to save that for another day. Okay, so very quickly, ways that you can practice on your own. First of all, make lists of what are called minimal pairs. Minimal pairs are pairs of words, two words next to each other that only have one sound that's different. And that one sound should be the sound that you're having trouble with. So let's say P and B are a problem. Then you might have a pair of words. One is cap, like a cap, and one is cab, a taxi cab, okay? Cap, cab. And you practice these kinds of pairs. You can make lists and lists of these words. You can look them up on Google. You can find any kind of word. It doesn't matter. But the important part is that only one sound, the sound you're focused on, should be different. Cap, cab. Back, bag, if I was working on K and G, for example. And you can practice these lists, record yourself. I don't think people use recordings enough. It is so easy for us these days. We all have a smartphone. You're watching me on your smartphone right now, and I guarantee you have a voice recording function. Speak into your phone, record it, and listen. People are usually shocked, not only because your voice sounds different. That's okay. Everybody's voice sounds different when they hear it than how it sounds in your head. But more than that, it's really funny, and I know this is true for me in Danish. In my head, my pronunciation is perfect, okay? I know what it's supposed to sound like. It sounds great in my head. But then, when it comes out of my mouth, something changes, something happens. And it's only when I record myself and listen that I think, oh my gosh, what is going on? I need to work on this. So a lot of times we think our pronunciation is clear because we hear it in our mind the correct way, but it isn't actually the way it's coming out of our mouth. So record yourself to check on how you're doing. Okay, that's a really, really important part of improving your pronunciation. And remember from yesterday, I said you want to make it fun, right? So another great way you can start practicing is by finding tongue twisters. And you can just do a Google search for tongue twisters in English, and you will find so many. But these are really fun. Don't get frustrated about it. Just take your time and find one like Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. And if you're working on a P sound, the whole idea is to find a tongue twister with the sound you're working on. And practice, 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 practice. It's a really fun way to practice. It's a way to warm up your mouth as well. So if you need to give a presentation, if you're going to be speaking English and you're not normally speaking English, it takes some time to warm up the muscles in your mouth when you change languages. So make sure to try these tongue twisters. Warm up the muscles, start feeling good about your mouth speaking English, and it will actually make your English flow better when you need to go into that meeting or give a presentation or get on the telephone. Okay, but tongue twisters are a really fun way of improving pronunciation. And also the last one I always tell my clients is to do a lot of reading out loud. So you're doing a lot of reading anyway. You're always focused on your phone, on articles or whatever, or you're reading a newspaper, or you have a favorite book, or you're reading to your kids at bedtime. These are all opportunities for practice. And one step even better is to record yourself when you're reading, again, so you can listen back. Okay, so I've got to run. I have to go to dinner, but I'm so happy I could hop on really quickly and say hello to all of you. I hope you're enjoying your Saturday evening, or if you're over, to the West in America or South America, North America, that you have a great rest of your Saturday. And remember, next week we're starting the free video series. So go to pronunciationmastery.com to register to be involved in that. And I'm going to be running really cool Q&A calls just like this after each video is released. So that I'm really, really looking forward to. I've never done that before, but I think that'll be really fun. So until next time, everybody, happy speaking. Bye.